Tayata Gade Gade Baran Gade Parason Gade Bodhi So Tayata Gade Gade Baran Gade Parason Gade Bodhi So Tayata Gade Gade Baran Gade Parason Gade Bodhi Tayata Gade Gade Baran Gade Parason Gade Bodhi Soha Sanje Chodang Soje Chonam La Janju Gado Danye Gapsu Chi Ragi Chujen Jibo Tonanje Tola Benje Sanjen Chokra So Sanje Chodang Soje Chonam La Janju Gado Danye Gapsu Chi Ragi Chujen Jibo Chokra Tola Benje Sanjen Chokra So Sanje Chodang Soje Chonam La Janju Gado Danye Gapsu Chi Daje Chujen Jibo Tonanje Tola Benje Sanjen Chokra So Sinja Tamja Topjala Namajiba Sanjay Kumar Bojinaga Togacha. The Asian Becha Joseph Laptana Susan and Nelson and Lawale Single, Simple Togo, Toba, Tuju Manova to go to, and the Council of the Doctor Lovely shooting in some subject.
And so we begin by setting our motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment. Knowing that to attain that state, I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. And to perfect those trainings, I need to have a good understanding by studying them, and I need to be able to study on the basis of a non-mistaken presentation and non-mistaken text. And so it is with this in mind that I am here this morning to listen to an explanation on the graduated path teachings, the graduated path to enlightenment. Shokdrang Ngap Dun and Zibapo Chewa Tang Chogi Chewa Tang Chola Yen Shegi Jidar Chawa Soda.
And children, you said that you will number number children of Suma. Let's a shepherd chashing and so that in a two and the shepherd children so that teacher. Taka jet several chiwa the touchdown Chicaso the two set it up, that the Lamjon, the Lamjon Several, George Lamjon dear, Yatu Sona, and that take us. What a catch Casuto Tave Chatan, Tave Chatan ship, and Jubecha, Jubechaten, you Casata, that Tave Chatu Combulutu, then Jitu Chambeyan, then a Dubashate to a Yatu to each other. And Jubechate and Papa Tome, Tome, Ne Yajan, Takanjaju. Tomegene, Java Jamba, and nobody had to it. What I know that did give them, but that number that Shiva Chekwe, the Chaku, or the check, and then that Cospa, that number with the Lamjun, that Lamjun there, and Lamjun and Lamjun, that comes to the march and Lamjun with Tabata, Jeroboch again, Lovely Chimola, so that Lovely Shuman was one thing, what did that I give them, but that number. Jesu Tay, what did it check? What did it check? Oh, the bitch was what did it check?
So we have arrived at the principal outlines of the graduated path teachings. They deal with initially looking at the outline known as the greatness of the author, and the greatness of the Dharma itself, or this particular presentation, and then having found conviction based on those two explanations, and then how one engages in the listening and explanation of the Dharma itself. And so this is to be understood on the basis of the various presentations of the greater, shorter versions of the graduated path teachings. And it really implicitly here we're looking back to really that which is started as the root text of the graduated path style of teaching, and that is, of course, the lamp of the path to enlightenment, as composed by the great Lama Atisha. And that in turn is really just the kind of a brief summary of all the teachings based on the two great categorizations of the teachings, based on the profound view coming from us from down through Arya Nagarjuna, who in turn from Manjushri, and then of course back to Shakyamuni Buddha himself. And likewise, the area of teachings, or the category of teachings of the vast practices, the extensive practices lineage, which was first of all collated by the great Arya Asanga, and of course through from him back to Maitreya, and then back to Shakyamuni Buddha himself. And then conversely, looking at the graduated path, or the lamp on the path of the path to enlightenment, composed by Lama Atisha. That formed the basis then for the graduated path teachings as we have them now, mainly coming from us, from the great J. Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed, amongst others, the extensive treatise on the graduated path to enlightenment. And of course, in most directly then in this context, when we talk about that outline, the greatness of the author, it is that point in the text where one looks into the biographies of the great beings and those who are seen as fundamental and connected to this particular text. For example, in this case, the Lama Atisha, and we have gone through briefly a little bit of the life story of Lama Atisha last week, and normally it's dealt with in terms of his activities in India initially, and then in Tibet later, and it's quite extensive in itself. And it really, the point of really getting to know who really founded this kind of teaching, or who started off this kind of presentation, and how authentic it is, and so on, is to, as it says in the outline, to understand the greatness of these authors, of these wonderful holy beings, and to really from our side gain a sense of inspiration to do what? To actually put their presentation, their teachings into practice, so that we rejoice in their wonderful life and their enlightened activities. We have conviction in what they have said, trust in their presentation, and so the teachings themselves can bring about that much more benefit. And so this is why this outline is usually given here. And in terms of the greatness of the Dharma here, it's really going to outline the particular features of, say, graduated path presentation. And again, it's a question of, once we become aware of that, then it also feeds into our inspiration, our desire to not just to get to know what the teaching is about, the details, but actually to put that into practice as well. And normally, there are four distinctive features which are relevant to the graduated path presentation. And they are that all the teachings of the Buddha are presented as non-contradictory, and that also that all the teachings will appear to one as personal instructions, that we can quickly and easily both be able to habituate to accumulating virtue that will be of benefit to us, and also quickly and easily be able to eradicate any the negativities and non-conducive elements to practice. And so, like this, particularly the first great feature of a graduated path presentation, that all of the Buddha's teachings are presented as non-contradictory. This is really far more significant than we might be able to understand at the first reading. But if you understand, for example, that the root text upon which all the graduated path teachings are based, namely the lamp for the path, or lamp of the path to enlightenment, was itself a very brief text, a short text, and whereas on the basis of that, Lama Tsongkhapa composed the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment, as you know, which is a very extensive text. And so what all of this shows is that no matter who approaches the graduated path teachings, and bearing in mind that there are humans of tremendous different dispositions and personalities and so on, that will approach these teachings, but regardless of who they are, they will all come to know that all of the teachings of the Buddha are without a contradiction, which I think is a very significant feature. And so what is really happening here is that they're showing a great understanding and clarity with regard to what are the definitive teachings of the Buddha and what are the interpretative teachings of the Buddha. And so it's a case too, it's like if we don't proceed without that understanding, then we will not be able to see that all the teachings of the Buddha are without contradiction. And so that you can see also that without this discipline really of being able to discern the interpretative meaning from the definitive meaning in the teachings is something of great importance, not just in the context of the graduated path teachings, but in terms of spiritual traditions in general. If we look at other spiritual traditions, for example in Christianity and so on, or in other traditions where there's no tradition of being able to have this discernment over what is possibly interpretative and what is definitive, but everything is considered as the definitive word of God, for example, and that creates conflict and that creates difficulty within those traditions themselves. And so if you have like the Pali tradition of Buddhism itself, that they have this tremendous faith in the teachings of direct word of the Buddha, but considering that to be the only word, and therefore they do not often consider neither the Mahayana tradition or the Tantric tradition to be the genuine teachings of the Buddha. And so difficulties can arise there as well. So we need to be able to follow the example really of the Nalanda tradition. And so there was kind of like there was all the different traditions of Buddhism on display and practiced in that great monastic institution without conflict. And so that to be able to always resort to resolving issues such as this through reasoning is of course absolutely paramount and extremely beneficial in situations like this. And so that when one understands that taking for granted that you're going to have human beings of tremendously varied dispositions, personalities, their approach and so on. And therefore, when it comes to the looking into the Buddha's teachings, to understand that because the Buddha himself understood this, and that he was giving teachings in several cases that were to be interpreted for particular dispositions, particular personalities, and in other cases to be making definitive statements that were true in all cases. And so that one takes into consideration that one accepts the sutras and the words of the Buddha not only because the Buddha said so or said them, but that we are putting our reasoning into it to understand what was interpretative in those teachings and what was definitive in those statements. And so that to understand the interpretative distinction, we need to be able to apply or to gain ascertainment based on the application of reasoning. And so that that's why the Arya Asanga and Arya Nagarjuna are held in such high esteem. They are the ones who really established the valid teachings of the Mahayana tradition. They are regarded as the two great charioteers of that tradition because they relied on reasoning in order to come to their particular conclusions. And so that that to be just accepting a teaching just because it was the word of the Buddha isn't really sufficient. One has to use reasoning in order to discern whether it was an interpretive statement or a definitive statement from the Buddha. And it's very much to understand that unless one applies reasoning in this way, one will not come to the source thought or the actual thought of the Buddha, what the Buddha actually meant. And so therefore it's not just a choice, but it's an imperative that we apply reasoning in order to ascertain what were the interpretative statements of the Buddha and what were the definitive statements of the Buddha. And that if and that's a very, very important distinction to make. And so that by being able to accept that within this presentation all the teachings of the Buddha are seen to be non-contradictory is an extremely important concern also in relation to the very serious negativity of the negativity known as the abandonment of the Dharma, or the disparaging of the Dharma, which can occur very easily and very frequently. And so this is another important consideration of this feature. And so it's a great benefit that such a feature of non-contradiction can put a stop to that sort of negativity of disparaging or abandoning the Dharma, something that can occur frequently and very easily. It can very easily come about that we find ourselves in a situation of in some way abandoning or disparaging the Dharma.
아니 소라마를 당가도 차례 치와다 라물기 딜라 때는 때바던데 개면 또도 다간제 소라마를 당가다 산지가 손 근데지 와이네 아니 뒤에 창기에 아니 저거서다 뭐 도스 줘야지 뭐삼 균에 아니 돌아 줘야지 돌아 줘야지 다 탑수 마주가 매되겠지 야는 뭐소 야는 균에 아니 제 탑수 마주와지 산제 고마탑에 타서 맞고 매팅했지.
And the second of the great distinguishing features of the graduated path presentation is that all the teachings of the Buddha can appear to the individual as personal instructions. And that this is another very, very important thing, that they are all relevant to our practice, whether directly or indirectly, but one can see the methodology behind them.
아니 개가 공부텔라도 또 비치와 다반제 지금 아니 람르비 슝텔라 때네 아니 산지 소라 타이야바 지어데 딱 소라 레레는 로브존 제고잖아 알아서 미지가 당마다 니소로와 다 데레자 람르비 데레지를 때네 아니 산지 그 아니 소라 탐제 저 공부텔라도 또 투에 오다데 시고질 없지 버려도
and that also that on the basis of the practice of the graduated path we can accumulate virtue quickly and easily. This is a third great feature, and that this is so important too to consider that that because the great graduated path teachings are a summary of what was essential about the teachings of the Buddha, that we can be assured that it's all there. One can really refine and one's virtuous attitude on the basis of that presentation. Whereas if we had to read all of the Buddha's teachings, there wouldn't be enough time in one life to be able to do that. And so it's a tremendous service that we have this really, really very high quality kind of summary. And then the fourth, of course, is that follows on from, on the one hand, being able to see all the teachings as non-contradictory, of being able to receive all the teachings as personal instruction, and to be able to quickly and easily accumulate a virtue. And the fourth is really a summary, or a kind of that which is a consequence of the first three. That is that we can quite automatically and naturally put a stop to our negativity and our negative behaviors.
그래서 지금 대대지다 조선 건설 제보다 계속 보시면 차대요. 난 딜러 조선 건설잖아. 산재가 수나 탐제라 조선 건설 제보 더 되고 어떻게 하면
And so by becoming aware of those features, they should be the basis on our subsequent study, contemplation, and meditation of those teachings. In other words, how we put them into practice. They should be an inspiration for our subsequent study, contemplation, and meditation, and to see how important it is that they are applied, that the teachings are applied in that way, and that to have that certainty that by applying the content of the graduated path, I am actually putting all the Buddha's teachings into practice. And so, following from the outline, the greatness of the author, and then the greatness of the text itself, or the Dharma, there follows then, having regained conviction because of that, how then we therefore afterwards listen to or explain these teachings. And so that's we set out to do this by through our understanding of the greater or the longer or smaller different publications of the graduated path teachings, and they can involve, for example, how we should listen to that text is with an attitude devoid of the three faults, normally referred to as the three faults of the pot or the container, and with 6 different recognitions. And so the 3 faults of the pot are a pot which is dirty, which is stained, or a pot which is turned upside down, or a pot which is leaking, which has a hole in it. And these are referred to as the 3 faults of the pot. Thì có sự khá búp thì có sự thì nó so thì
ni khu địa vata woten da chi yor vata ni khu de ta de lo na ma de chi yor vata de kulong du ja ke yo ma ta kulong du ja ke yo ma ta kha bu ta na ane ta chui na ka ri na do ma wa lo kha bu sha na
ne de ne ko so sumba de
shap tu wa yang ida se ba ina wa de i gu de na
re
de tu ma wa de nian ju nian ba chi la ina sem la ma sha ne 남쪽 드네다 드네바 르샤쇼로 그도나 마테시오라 그때 쓰기로.
And so that's the three faults of the pot, and then the pot which is dirty or stained, that we can see that if you pour something into that, even something very high quality, because of the filth inside the pot, it destroys the contents. The contents will go off very quickly. And so this relates to a person listening with a faulty or stained motivation. And so they do not have a good motivation for being here or listening, but rather something negative. And that this, of course, then means that no matter what is poured in, no matter what they hear, will be destroyed, will be contaminated. And so the second of the pots refers to the pot which is turned upside down. And just like you can't pour anything into a pot which is upside down, the same goes for a person who is listening, who is not really paying attention, maybe sleeping, and so what's being said is not really going in at all. It can't, because people are not paying attention. And so it might not just be that they are sleeping, but also distracted, thinking about work, thinking about other things, so that their attention is not really on the teaching itself. And the third kind of pot is the pot which is in a second example, the person may come with a good motivation, but they are simply not in a position to listen to the teachings, and so that's the fault of the second kind of pot. The third one is the pot with a hole, which is leaking, and so this person again is now had a good motivation and is able to listen, but it's not taken seriously. It's not really taken as practice, and so therefore it's the case of in one ear and out the other. So whatever comes in doesn't make a difference to their lives. Like pouring something into a pot with a hole, it just goes out the other end.
Rabdu nyola yila sungshi
Rabdu nyo
lekbar cha tambo lekbar yaboje nyogores lekbar rabdu nyoba singate ane kasata nyo kabuba kyo papane ane ta dona tene nyogores ta nyamba de ane yila sungshi sta majeba chis ane nyo shadwe kyo pan sungutwa kyo pangores nyo lekbar rabdu nyola yila sungshis tsik sumyo lepar tiki nyo tima chingkyo lepar rabdo nyo la nyo kapu bekyo yila sungshi sete nyo shabdo bekyo di sum pangwe tono nyembo reyas sanjik toy nalo le.
And so then again, as quoting the sutra, the Buddhist sutra from which these examples were extrapolated, and that quoting how one should listen to a teaching. And the first is that one should listen well, listen purely. And so this refers to overcoming the faults of the contaminated pot. So one has to really check one's motivation initially, that it's a good, pure motivation for coming to listen to the teaching. And then the second aspect is to listen intently. And so this is again to avoid the problems of the second kind of pot, which is upturned, and where one's motivation, one's attention, and might be distracted for one reason or another. So it's saying really listen intently, and then and then the third, the Buddha says to then hold within the mind. Don't forget. And so this again is referring to the third kind of pot of the leaking pot, so that even though it goes in, it dribbles out, leaks out. Whereas the Buddha is saying here, once you do hear it, once it does get in, hold it within the mind. Don't forget. And this is the way one should listen. And so these are the what one should set up our listening quality, really, to make sure that we are not in any way affected by these three faults of listening. And then one has other attitudes to set prior to listening to a teaching, and these are kind of 6 conducive features that are helpful when one is listening to a teaching. The first is that one should see oneself as a patient who is sick. One should see the Dharma itself as medicine, and one should see the teacher as an expert doctor. The Shiva tongue So the first of these, yes, the first of these 6 recognitions, to see oneself as a sick patient. This is the most important, in fact, that all the others become relevant only because of this, and that we must see that we have problems, that we have an issue, and the issues that we have are mental afflictions. This is the sickness that we are talking about. This is why the mind is sick, because of these mental afflictions. And so we come in really seeking help, seeking the correct medicine, and that will overcome this particular illness, these particular illnesses. And so it's very important that we have this recognition of ourselves as sick with the mental afflictions. And that means then that the medicine of the Dharma has the possibility of helping. If we don't, if we're only pretending that we're sick, but really think that we have no mental afflictions, then the Dharma is not going to really help. Can't help, because you won't allow it to. And the third, then, that the doctor, the expert doctor, is the spiritual friend who is delivering the medicine, delivering these teachings, and that will overcome the mental afflictions. The fourth recognition is that we have recognized that by applying the medicine, we will recover from the illness. In other words, that by practicing the Dharma, we will overcome our mental afflictions. The fifth recognition is to see how all those gone to bliss are holy beings, worldly beings. And the sixth is that we have the recognition of really wishing that the teachings will remain for a long, long time.
단다 초주의 산제의 자주 초주의 산제 되게데 산제 다무 가라서 녀모에 내게 나와라 다 녀모에 내 나와디 아니 녀모게 내디 아니 매바 켜봤대네 아니 디 나외 아메 아랑게 란 가서 된데 녀모에 내 나와디 못트네 아니 디 가서도 가서도 다가제 매바 켜봤대 매바 켜배 나외 담배 취대 랑게 냠솔라나 다 대신 셔봤어 디 냠솔라네 셔봐 임바 인사 식네 와다디 오 디가서 미베다사 기부 담바체 다 된데 임바 인사 아니 다 된데 그 최고 취대다 유진 내고도 개치 못 쉬고 차도 아니 유진 내외 아니 된데 그 두시 소로가.
And so the fifth of these recognitions to really see how all of the those gone to bliss are holy beings. The significance of this is, of course, by recognizing that those gone to bliss being the Buddhas, who also went through this, must have gone through this process as well, of, on the one hand, recognizing prior to their becoming enlightened, that they also had this illness, this sickness of mental affliction, of really recognizing this illness and accepting that yes, they had to do something about it. They took the medicine, they practiced the path, the Dharma, and they recovered because of their sincere application of the teachings, and became those who we regard as holy beings now, those who have gone to bliss. And so it's like the fifth recognition is to really look at those who have gone through the process as really important examples, showing us what we should also do and how therefore we should set our motivation when we come to listen to a teaching. And from the fifth, really I think naturally comes the sixth, that because of that understanding now, the recognition now, we really have a strong wish that the teachings remain for a long, long time. That's something such a medicine so valuable that it should remain for a long, long time.
다서 가서다 럽자 시작하는 다 라므를 두들러 배 시고지 개부여래 다 되게들 또나 나서 어디서 되네 디 제법니 디야 제법고 월시 수배 되라 같이 있어.
And so the greatness of the teaching, we have only very briefly touched upon it in pointing out these kind of like the three faults of the pot and the six recognitions, and this subject is dealt with in much greater detail, of course, in the graduated path teachings themselves, for example the great treatise. And so when it comes then to the greatness of the author, there are some further points to be made, and so one is pointing out that in the context of the graduated path teachings, there is a statement which says the author of that is the author of this, and when there are some commentators or who refer to who take a particular meaning from that.
가시 대시들 자기 도스 이내 제를 붙였다 다들 조지 투주 찍고 이거다 또 바꿔 뭐 투주 찍고 이내 양사 안 제단이 첨부 아니 두주는 가서다 마사 손대지. 되게 남자 안 두주 신도서 가서 신도 사베 라니 저보다 두주 집어 무슨 식 갈시스 무슨 식 말했어. 나한테 라브치 붙이고 되나 뒤 되면서 장주 람게 저만이서 다 람림다 댄림다 안 람조 탐제제 세자자의 흉차대요 와서 흉이배 대 양제바보 오셰바다 다 세자자의 흉대다 람조 차대인자 아니 다 람종게 다 그다 때라 바고 요바사 와다 디 제바보스라 베티그레 제바보 오셰바다 갑디 제바보야 람조 제바보 조보라 제송바 인데스.
So that's what the several commentators refer to in reference to that statement, that the author of that is the author of this, is that they assume or they state that both Lama Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa have the same continuum, the same mind stream. And that, but the author here is saying that how could that be the case? That how could the profundity and the vastness of a mind such as Lord Tsongkhapa be the same as Lama Atisha? That doesn't make sense. And so it's rejecting that point. And actually, that this is within the graduated path teachings themselves. Actually, I think this is Lama Tsongkhapa's point, but he's saying the actual meaning is, as Geshe-la referred to earlier, that when it comes to the graduated path teachings or the stages of the teachings, indeed any presentation of the supreme path, that in the context of graduated path, one is always implicitly the understanding is that one is really explaining the root text of that tradition, which was the lamp for the path to enlightenment. And so when one says the author of that or the author of this, what is really happening is that in the context of Lama Tsongkhapa's compositions, he's really saying, I am citing Lama Atisha as the author, because that's the root text that I'm basing my own explanation on. And so that's how it should be understood. And so that, for example, it's saying, like, just like in the great commentaries, the great text, the great commentaries, that at the end they write down the author. They kind of cite the author at that point, and that so this is the way that it should be understood here. That Lama Tsongkhapa is really citing Lama Atisha as the root text on which all of this was based.
제르보제 조업에도 로축된 수고 송바 송여레스 다 송여서 안디 다 태바레샤 태데 조베 남다 조조반 아디셰가 남다 콩니에서 다 콩도사데 나조 로자와라 투비어레스 나조 로자에 나조 조고 로축고 때바레스 주고 때마인데 자가도 로니다 베도 로다 자가도 로니 때마인사 안을 하마 로축된데 베를 때바다 나조 니게 제베서 되바 개주바레 송베체스다 그래서 다들 조제가 되바 개주바티나라 되게 세게 도스딘사 제르부체 송예데 대대 도송했으니서 직제되다 로니 주구된지 전화야 교지 구송 토라 주바이 예배지만 맞아 통례게 셰당사
신탁 두변하고 그
가서 kyunga sema purina doge bawa sungbe tsesa dene loni nishuna tse duje dongshe sungsa dene loni lomba nasa pyodo chube duyosu ni bika maa ni shila nasa dani loni chobje na tse duje dangne su luide pyodo jogo sung deje sungshe ma chubar jungwa dene wasar che she sungbe chir sung
And so, and then also with regard to a particular guidebook, it refers to the fact that that Lama Atisha says in that book that Lama Atisha spent 13 years in Tibet. But Je Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa disputes that and says that Lama Atisha actually spent 17 years in Tibet, and this is the correct version, because this coincides or disagrees with the explanation as given in the official long biography of Lama Atisha, which was written by Natso, and that's he says he served Lama Atisha for 19 years. 2 years in India and 17 years in Tibet. And so, and furthermore, he says that even though I have been associated with you in service for 19 years, I have absolutely never seen any stain or flaws from errors in your body, speech, or mind. From the time in Somapuri, India, when you were teaching the Blaze of Logic by Bhava Viveka, you said, after 20 years I will give up my life's activities. 2 years later, when coming to Tibet from Vikramala Shila Monastery, you said, after 18 years I will give up my life's activities, leaving this body in Tibet. Whatever you said has happened without error. It is wonderful.
Sura Malio Tangwado Chawa. Sura Malio Tangwado Chawayina, Sura Kundi Jeje Lam Tata, Kibu Sumdi Lam Yajamba to be Jumze the Carriers Kang. Kibu Chimbo Lam Gula Kevala, Kibu Ting the Tumo Lam to Chokubata. Kibu Ting the Tumo Lam Gula Kevala, Kibu Chungo the Tumo Lam Gula Keva, Mother Chokuba, Suchita was Shena.
And so, so based on the lamp of the path to enlightenment, the graduated path system came into being, and so showing that, and this is under the context of what was just discussed, the greatness of the teaching, that all the teachings of the Buddha in this context are seen to be non-contradictory, that all the teachings arise as personal instructions, and that the subject matter of all the teachings are collected into the kind of stages of the paths relating to the three capacities of beings. And so to say, how does this come about? How is this related to the three capacities of beings? And so it said that in order to be able to develop the attitude of the great capacity being, one must, before that, and this is a very essential, be able to familiarize with the path of the medium capacity being, that the path in common with the medium capacity being, and likewise that in order to be able to establish the attitude of the medium capacity being, one must kind of use as the foundation for that the path in common with the smaller capacity being. And so this is an extremely important consideration when we're looking into the graduated path teachings as well. Sura Kungi Jocha
Joja Lam Tada Kibu Sumja Lam Garimbana Tudiasa, Sanji Toma Tuja, Pato Sosa, Tango Bazova, Sanji, Zavate Bate, Simja Kone to Chatela Screw Yimbe. And the Chosuma Tamja Simja Kone to Tubu. Tuja Simja Dola, Nega Monto Sigan, Monto Ta, Tatu Gele, Tabu Gele, Jubal, Zamde Gini, Suma Tamjane, Kibu Chumuda, Chungo was a dead to move Chogo to. Kasata ngele la yasa tabada 탐제 개발 니 여버스 니 여버라 담보 주발에 잠데 진이 소바 탐제 기부 딩다 투모 초보 탐제 개발 주발에 잠데 진이 소바 탐제 기부 치비 초보도 두에 체르사
and that and so that the kind of presentation of the graduated path is really a summary of all the teachings of the Buddha laid out for the three capacities of being. And so I'm saying, well, why is this? Because it's saying all the subject matter of all the teachings is also like a summary of the paths as related to the three capacities of beings. If we take into the consideration that the Buddha really developed the mind of enlightenment, and then afterwards he accumulated merit for countless eons, and then all the teachings he subsequently gave, having attained full and complete enlightenment, because he developed the mind of enlightenment and practiced on the path and attained enlightenment solely for the benefit of sentient beings. And so all the teachings that he subsequently gave were also for the benefit solely of sentient beings. And that here the kind of subject matter of that kind of the meaning, or to say the way that these are applied by sentient beings then is dependent upon the motivation that sentient being has. So they are divided into the teachings, say, related to those who are aspiring to what is known as the temporary superior states of attaining positive rebirth as a human being or as a celestial being. And the other the motivation is that the person is motivated to attain what is called ultimate excellence. And that so the first of these, that is those whose aspiration is to attain temporary superior states, that all the kind of the subject matter involved in that they should practice is referred to as the turning of the wheel for the teachings in common with the person of smaller capacity. And with regard to the second great category, those who are aiming for ultimate excellence, this has two categories. Here it depends on whether one's aspiration is to attain the state of liberation or to go beyond that into the state of omniscience and enlightenment itself. And the first of these, that when one is looking into all of the teachings relevant to attaining liberation from cyclic existence, they correlate to the teachings in common with the being of a medium capacity. And then, of course, that those who are wishing to attain the state of omniscience, of complete enlightenment, that all the subject matter of the teachings there are referred to as the turning of the wheel for the being of greater capacity. And so this is also a way of coming to know how all the teachings of the Buddha are really summarized in the graduated path presentation, because beyond the aspiration of attaining a temporary superior state of a human being or a celestial being, of attaining the states of ultimate excellence, of liberation, or the omniscient state of enlightenment, these are there's no other objective within all the teachings of the Buddha anyway, and so that they are also central to the graduated path presentation is further confirmation that the graduated path presentation is a summary of all the essential teachings of the Buddha.
모니스는 지당 데리고 가서 가서 프레셔 줄스와 아니 진짜 모니스의 기부 충고 아니 모니니바 기부 팀 마모니스의 기부 친구 태고서 몰랑거려 봐서 대하고도 와 태고서 몰랑거려 봐서 딱 이제 가서 태고서 몰랑거려 봐 뒤톤에 아니 두자리 저수고 되어야도 와 되어주고도 와 다 대해서 두자리 저수고 되어주 봐라 태고서 몰랑거려 봐 뭔도 제고다 뭔도 산제고 마스로 와 딩모도 전에 아니 심절을 팬트어야 돼 태고서 몰랑거려 배톤에 아니 두제 감도 배톤에 아니 람때네 아니 냠소 랑주는 덮고도 와
And so even the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Soha, is also implicitly showing us the three capacities of being, and that the first Muni refers to the being of smaller capacity, the second to the being of medium or intermediate capacity, and the third the person of greater capacity, or the Mahayana ideal. And so within that mantra is this recognition also that for example, graduated path presentation is something that is is acknowledging that beings will have different dispositions, potentials, personalities, and that although the ultimate goal is, of course, to attain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, that will proceed in a graduated, may have to proceed in a graduated way of being able to delve into the teachings relative to the smaller capacity being, or the medium capacity being, or the greater capacity being.
다 라무가 고아지 차베 도네 아니 덤베 생각들래 좋아미다도 덤베 생각들래 오 대마서 별랑거리 버스 대하고도 삼삼.
And so that even the more understanding we have of the graduated path teachings will also give us the more profound understanding of mantra, such as reciting the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha himself.
다 탐제 점바 두발에 잠제 진이 숨바 탐제 다 가자 내래라 니샤 타바다 탐제 점바 니샤 다 아니 타바다 탐제 점바 다 로다 가자 어제다 저거 어제 다 가자 다 가자 가서도 어제 다 탐제 점바 두발에 잠제 진이 숨바 탐제 아니 가서데 다 기부치 비추고 다 대과 전부들라야 아니 주파리도 집에 대과도 저부상아 도지 티바스 니 유베나네 오다 다 주파리 집에 대과도 저부스 도지니 다 되니 컨디션 바이네 되니 컨디션 냠슬라와 이바이네야 장주가 셈 냠슬마라와 탑메 되겠지 주파리도 집에 냠슬라가데 저부 도지 티바 컨디션 냠슬라가네 상아가는 냠슬라가네 주고디 장주가 셈이 버려 장주가 셈 고도 어디자
And so that, yes, in terms of that category of aspiration known as ultimate excellence, that here it's saying that therefore your objective is to attain the state of liberation, or the omniscient state of enlightenment. And in the context of the attaining the state of enlightenment itself, one must follow the perfection vehicle of the Mahayana, and subsequently also the tantric vehicle, both. And it's pointing out here that essential to both those is the motivation of bodhicitta, that the entry into either the perfection vehicle of the Mahayana or the tantric vehicle of the Mahayana is the development of the mind of enlightenment itself, and it's solely that. It's so important to be able to generate that.
nghien중 고도와 기부 딩 추고죠. nghien중 고도와. 근데 nghien중 코치 녀바 중 nghien중 개발라야 아니 가서도 다다데 아니 가서도 nghien중 개발라야 아니 가서도 다 지금 가서 코에 딩 가서도 코에게 다 모두 되게 간제 집안에 동해터나 딜은 녀바 중 nghien중 고도와. 안 근데 중알이야 아니 용알아야 아니 체디 낭시에 도구도 치매 낭시에 도구도 치매 낭시에 도와래 체디 낭시에 도구도 와 어떤 다 되네 이마이자 다 산제게네 가서도 기부속을 남고 림바 되게데 두제체 창게 남고 림바 메타메게 차되기도 와
So, the mind of enlightenment is the entry point for entrance into either of the perfection or tantric vehicles of the Mahayana or the greater capacity beings path. And but in order to be able to generate that mind of enlightenment, the main cause is, of course, compassion, to be able to develop compassion focused on the suffering and torment of all sentient beings. But that in turn is an attitude of mind that is cultivated on the basis of renunciation. That is the recognition of how I myself am impacted by all the various torments and sufferings of cyclic existence. And now we will recognize that attitude of renunciation is of primary importance for the intermediate capacity being, whose objective is to attain liberation from cyclic existence. So you can see how that renunciation is a fundamental cause, a stepping stone for the development of the later compassion focused on the torment and suffering of all sentient being, which in turn is the main cause for the mind of enlightenment. But we can go back even further to understand that when one is developing renunciation based on the understanding of the vast and varied sufferings and torments within all of cyclic existence, that is something that is previously cultivated on the basis of the fear we have of the sufferings of the lower realms and the hell realms and so on. That is the main encouragement for the being of smaller capacity, for them to make sure that they don't end up in a lower realm and to take a higher rebirth as a human being or a celestial being. In other words, this temporary superior state. And so it is now clear that to be able to attain, to be able to fulfill the objectives of the full path, of the attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient being, one must practice the graduated stages of the path relevant to all capacities of being. So we must go through the path in common with the being of smaller, intermediate capacity being, in order to really fulfill the understanding of the attitude that's necessary for the being of greater capacity. So this is why also when one speaks in graduated path terms of the three capacities, the paths relative to the three capacities of being, one says the path in common with the being of smaller capacity, the path in common with the being of medium capacity, and the path for the greater capacity being. This means that what's the understanding of that in common means that in fact even the greater capacity being must be practicing the teachings relative to intermediate and smaller capacity being.
다 대니 강도 주죠. 주고는 장주고 섬 코너 내시. 장주고 섬 규라 개발라 하는 섬자 탐자 동네게 타와 나가서 동네게에서 동네게 타 동네 나와요. 동네 나와는 미세베 닝지 개고. 섬자 탐자 동네게 나와는 미세베 닝지 개발라야 다 단단해. 기부사 중정제 내가 메시아바 따제라니 코아다 명성도 동네게 집어지고 도와서 아니 들라테는 군조텔라 대교는 네가 요바지시 예배 아니 이치바니 뭐도 좋대다 잡고 주제 때보다 좋거든 라니 코아다 명성도 동네를 지네 들라 탄도에 로슈다 매번 선제시 동네 나오는 것이 이제대 아니 게다 요바스 사이니고 콜로 주변 돈에 추제 동에 투야면은 자주치 못 가나 가라 무니 태과 니장 고민이나 태과 첨부 가라 럽니 시에다 람르레 자서 람르레 대야 란대와 뭐가 tilap죠.
And so to develop the mind of enlightenment in one's own mind stream, one must have the compassion which finds the torment of the suffering of all sentient beings to be unbearable. And in order to be able to develop that great compassion which finds the tormenting suffering of all sentient beings to be unbearable, one must have that fear of suffering of the lower realms and cyclic existence that are explained in the paths of the intermediate and smaller capacity being. And one must, on the basis of that, also have the faith and conviction and trust that the Triple Gem have the power to protect from that suffering. So these are like preliminaries to be able to really fully cultivate that compassion, which is the main compassion and the main cause for the mind of enlightenment itself. And furthermore, it says that if we don't have a very powerful desire for liberation, which comes from the fear of suffering of the lower realms and cyclic existence, then we will not be able to develop the powerful compassion which cannot bear the torment of the suffering of other sentient beings. So seeing here is absolutely essential. This is further backed up by quotes from several different sources. The first comes from the Sutra of the 10 Wheels, where it says, if you have no ability to sip a small bit of water, how can you gulp down the great ocean? If you cannot practice the two vehicles, how can you practice the great vehicle?
나라도 단다 태과 첨부 이스 태과 첨부가 지금 다 생계 쉬면 지금 열때 얘네야 나라들라 년종 대비 다 보면 맞지 그렇지 아니 내가는 다 년종 비다 보면 다 가서도 아니 코알이 시작이 요래 아니 랑이 지금 대화다 미팅 버지도 강내 체제 태과 첨부 취지다 파제래 아니 기본 등기 줘요 기본 등기 줘 파잖아 기본 중국 줘야 많이 와질 하되기도 와但我就得捐的嘛，可是呢，可是我就得，可是菜农不叫着土有嘛是吧？但得捐有个多啊。大地了看着够多，是吧？本来基本清白娘是老完了，基本真给，可是的他，快点也把就严重够多，快点了也把就严重够了，俺可是的他。可是的，年松的，可是当，可是的，可是当跨龄也把就严重的用啊那样，彻底能现的多快的差不多啊，是吧？他起码年松了给他别啥个这上次去，他起码年松了给的呢，过了这个定了人家说呢，他我对国办考完呢，我都夸了一下子，这个 타바되는 이거 로켓이 아니 뭐도 되길래 동해가 하실 때에는 아니 딜레 타바되는 게 고고도 와 어디 그 삼로 내자 마상도 아니 태과 전부 주고요 다 비다고 좀 많이 왔지
And so this is quite true. I said this: if you have not the ability to sip a small bit of water, how can you gulp down the great ocean? And if you cannot practice the two vehicles, how can you practice the great vehicle? And so, it's really pointing the finger, really, and saying, like, really question yourself, like, to what extent do you have the big picture here? Like, we really, we may say, oh yes, I'm a Mahayanist and I talk about benefiting all sentient beings, etc. But I may not have even good quality renunciation. And so that means that I'm still clinging to the stuff of cyclic existence. And so it's very important, and that we might even examine our motivation more, and even talk about to what extent are we even adhering or loyal to the motivation of the medium capacity or intermediate capacity being, or how valid is it our practice even at the smaller capacity level, where we are fearing the suffering of the lower realms and wanting to attain higher rebirth because we want to avoid such a rebirth, but we're still clinging to the stuff of this life. So it's very much seeing how incomplete our motivation is, how incomplete our thinking, how small-minded our thinking is still. And so it's really saying, really you must have the broad view, the long-term approach, and see the big picture.
상하 도지 태관을 가르쳐 고도 가르고도 상하 도지 태관 장주 셈을 켜봐 요말 돈이 도면 셔를 켜봐 요말 다 가르쳐 용 거라서 장주 그셈 규이 태관에 제비 태관에 장주 셈 누가 숙치하고 요 그래서 셈쟁 그때 딱 가서 셈쟁 동에 나와라 딱 가란다 개반에 개배 봐도 안에 저가서 남네 전에 대바 있네 코알에 내바 있네 동해 나와라 그 강에 뭐도 심진 그 동해 나오는 게 수고 뭐도 깨지냐 소리도 뭐도 뉴도 산제 고마토고 도스는 저블람진 잠슬한 거 열봐 람고 열봐 얘네 온슈 뭐저 온슈와 삼게 아니 냠슬 나와서 말아 봐 온슈와 삼게 온슈에 돼 냠슬 라에게 다 랑초에게 촉세 잡으러 와 퍼미션 잡으러 와 좋아 가서는 저블람도 제도 아니 랑을 하게 고도 아니 퍼미션 맨나 깨초고 요 말이 안디자 퍼미션 소라 들어와. 다티 쉬는 냠슬랑 거가 될랑 거요 말이야. 아니 차단게 대되고 열와. 팅 맞쪽에 뭐저로 뭐저게 팅 맞쪽에 쳐래. 팅 맞쪽에 쳐 말이 야와 체체는 다 차단게 대되고 열어. 정말 저 쉬는 가지고 그러서는 다 아니 가서다. 뒤치고 열와 가서 탑에 낚시 까고 열와. 타메가 남세도 마가 잘 앉아 냐대 안 온슈 디고 사대 되고 요 그래서 모두 차게 타고 요 말와 다 들어와 방전 좀 해봐라
And so yes, it's it's not a minor issue, this of overreaching compared to where we're really at, and to be able to practice realistically according to what our capacities are at the moment. Like this is in particular in reference to the frequency with which people take empowerments at the moment, and that they're very much freely available. People take them, and that that quite apart from their lack of understanding of emptiness, or lack of affinity with the mind of enlightenment, which are considered pretty essential to attain to be able to even take an empowerment, but that one is not even cognizant of the particularly powerful motivation that must precede any aspiration to tantric practice, and that is that one is considered and is aware of the tremendous suffering within cyclic existence, and indeed the tremendous length of time that one must practice along the perfection vehicle, three countless great eons, to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And one is saying that one understands that, I understand that, but I'm not concerned for myself for that length of time or that degree of suffering, but I am acutely aware of all other sentient beings who must continually suffer while I am on that path. Therefore, I want to choose the quickest possible way to attain enlightenment, in order to be, in the quickest possible time, be able to benefit sentient beings in the way I've promised. And that's my motivation for entering into this empowerment, to take this empowerment. And so it's very, very important that we understand too that the empowerment means that we are given permission to engage in certain practices, such as generating ourselves as the deity. That without an empowerment, one is not allowed to do such. And we should also be aware then of what potential that gives us to really quickly attain a state of enlightenment. But we are very ill-informed. We are not fully understanding of what we're doing, and we can continue with our usual, attachments and aversions of I like this, I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that, I approve of this, I don't approve of this. This whole attitude of what is really supporting our old ordinary appearance. And so we miss the whole point of Tantra, which its central tenet of it is that one puts a stop to ordinary appearance. One really has to look from a point of view of an enlightened, taking the result onto the path. This is why it's called that resultant path, and that we are adopting the tantric enlightened viewpoint of putting a stop to all ordinary appearances. Because we failed that, we are still continually accumulating in negativities. When we have an aspiration to engage, to take empowerment, that we should not see the taking of the empowerment as the important thing, but rather the practice that we are subsequently allowed to do based on that empowerment. And that's where we should have the emphasis always, prior to entering into tantric empowerment. And that we must be able to be prepared to enter into all aspects of that practice. Otherwise, there is no benefit. And that if we, just take on the recitations within the commitments of the six session Guru Yoga and simply quickly read through it and just to get it over with, there's no benefit in that. That we have to understand that these practices are there in order to become habituated with, to generate the habituated, to kind of constantly familiarize, so that it becomes second nature, that we generate ourselves as the deity and so on, and go through that process to really familiarize, habituate. So the recitation of six session Guru Yoga is the purpose for which, that's the purpose for which it is set.
그래서 두 샤고에 들어 니래서 첸래서 니마 니래서 첸디 나와 마예베 쳐도 디 점발라 저술라 쳐도 왔다.
And so that's why it's 6 session. You know, it's traditionally 3 times during the day, 3 times during the night, so that we are constantly reminded that we are in the kind of tantric mandala, that we are practicing in this way, and that this is why it's split up into 6 sessions like that, as a way of reminding us of what the pure view should be.
我就感觉是小个伢郎，就不得对，那个好毛病呢，就是啥就好毛病的，你看见，你这样嘛，那你们就干这样。
So, you know, we might take the attitude of, you know, getting up in the morning and running through all 6 sessions right there and then, and saying, right, that's that, finish, close the book, off you go, run the day. No connection between that and your life. So that can't be said to be the perfect practice in any way.
착당 계획을 로든 용도 줘야 그래서 제고도 라는 냠용을 때는 왔다 그래서 착당 계획도 그래서 착당 계획도 안 될 때는다 소소 착당 용도 줘야 했다 안 될 배조 제대 개침버려도
And so that's you know, it's important to keep really analyzing what can lessen my attachment and aversion, and to understand that means that in order to do that, to see some positive effect in that way, I need to really deal with my mental afflictions, and to, you know, be very, very skillful with regard to that. That's what will reduce any attachment and aversion.
먼저 섬들어도 라마 산제서 딱 라마 산제서 딱 도스 강에 도스 거 얘네 먼저 나 라메 온슈엘 강에 개요 말 나 라메 온슈나 라마 산제서 딱 거면서 신제 탐제 산제서 딱고 라 산제서 딱고요 뭐 섬들데 먼저 섬로 가서 마시베 끼어라 마시베 끼어라도
So it's like we proceed with, in terms of Tantra, very much through a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding more. You know, like people talk about, oh, it's very difficult to be able to see the Guru as a Buddha, as, you know, one with the Buddha. And they say that's a very difficult kind of thing to see. But they have no difficulty taking empowerment, you know. That's totally contradictory, because once you've taken empowerment, you not only need to be able to see the Buddha or the Guru as Buddha, but all sentient beings as a Buddha, yourself as well. And so if you have difficulty seeing just the Guru as the Buddha, then you've no business taking empowerment. And so these kind of statements are heard even within the groups of old students. We really like taking empowerments. Yeah.
다 가제 먼저 내주 찾아 신고도 시바이네 아니 소세지 냠네 제투사 말에 아니 소세 담가 제요 봐. 슈차네 담가 제요 말에. 마쇼 그네 담가 제도.
So that it's important to know the full story, and then to see what is, where am I really at? What is my capacity? Can I really do what's being asked of me on the basis of, say, taking a tantric empowerment? And that one should make the decision there and then prior to taking the initiation. It's not a decision to consider after you've taken empowerment. It's beforehand.
가서 지게를 캡다 먹고 요래 캡다도 삽사지거서 다 캡다도 맞 그래서 다 조단지데 얘는 소수만에 조가도 먹고 삽사지고 이렇게 좀 와. 아니 소수 냠슬랑 투자 말에 아니 되지 레바이나 가리제 거서래 아니 근데 챙겨 참고도 소수의 제 투자마다 먹고 삼당고도 와.
So that this has always been the advice, that prior, beforehand, one should really be very, very careful to consider all the possibilities, all the aspects, all the ins and outs of what I'm thinking of doing. In other words, taking an empowerment. So you see, can I relate to the spiritual teacher in that way, as it says in the tantric teachings? I need to be very, very careful, not just to rely on what the advertisement says. I'm very fond of that sort of making sweet and very worthy advertisements in the West, but to actually see what can I do, or what's being not do, what's being asked of me from this empowerment. What kind of conditions will I have to be able to practice it, and to look at it from all the different angles and weigh up the possibility of how well I'll be able to or not follow what's needed following this empowerment, and to make a decision then, not afterwards, when you kind of you make the decision without doing the necessary research, and then enter into empowerment, and then you start complaining about having to do this and that, and I can't see the guru as like this, etc., etc. That's not the time to be bringing up these issues. So it's quite common in the West, kind of said, this kind of like strange, fickle attitude of proceeding to make important decisions about life quite quickly, without necessary consideration, without necessary research. Even becoming Buddhist, even at that level, become a Buddhist, and after a few years, then they go, I don't see any difference in myself, because I've been doing this, that, and it's not helping. So they leave it and they give up, and it's kind of like this very quick to change direction. It seems to be a feature of the West. So there seems to be some sort of also sort of disconnect between the kind of the teachings that we receive, and the imperative to actually put them into practice. That we'll often talk about the source of my teachers, my teachings, and so on, all that I've received, but I see no transformation, and the reason there's no transformation, because you haven't applied the teachings. You won't see any transformation unless you actually put the stuff into practice, and that and if you don't, then the mental afflictions are not going anywhere. They're going to be there. They're not going to move unless you do something about them. And so really one's full attention should be on the prerogative of the Dharma practice. And that means when we're talking about Dharma practice, we're talking about how we oppose mental afflictions, how we eradicate mental afflictions, how we apply antidotes to mental afflictions, how we stop them from generating and reducing their influence over our lives. That's the purpose of it. Other than that, if you're practicing Dharma without really paying attention to your mental afflictions, they're not going anywhere. They're not really going to be affected in any way. And so this is very much kind of like directly pointed out when we go for refuge, and we talk about the three refuges, the three protections, that we talk about the Buddha jewel, is that the Buddha is the one who shows us the path. He's the one who shows the path. But the actual protection is the Dharma jewel. And that really it's saying this is how you really protect yourself, by overcoming the mental afflictions. And but specifically by establishing true paths and true cessations in your mind stream. And so once that's the case, then you're beyond the control of the mental afflictions. They will not have any impact on your mind. And so, and the Dharma or the Sangha jewel, of course, is for showing the example and to assist us on the path. But the actual that actual protection for us is the Dharma jewel. Actually practicing the teachings.
다 최고조도 란줄에 깨네. 아니 돈도 녀모는 내고면 돈은 어다 처음도 샤나 되기로 봐. 그러봐. 다 처음도 쓰라. 그러봐. 다 최고도 란줄에 깨봤어요. 아니 깨네. 돈도 녀모 깨게 도나. 다 남배쳐도 처음도 샤잖아. 내가 요 말어 봐. 그 라트 말어 봐. 다 되면 버저 최고조 주변 탑심마다 하지. 아니 디콩을 줘봐서 녀모 매봤자 어디 차도 말어 봐.
And so if it was the case, that we actually took on board the notion of the Dharma being the actual protection, and therefore we practiced and we developed it in our own mind stream and so on, but still we had the mental afflictions, then we could say, yeah, this stuff doesn't work, I'll drop it. But rather than that, we kind of go, we don't really get the point that the actual practice, the integration of the teachings is the real protection, and we don't thereafter really follow that up, integrate it into our lives and practice in our daily lives, and we still then say, there's no influence over my mental affliction, I'm still a miserable human being, I'm therefore going to drop the Dharma. That's unreasonable. So therefore, as it says in the graduated path, that one should check out prior. One should do proper analysis beforehand. And then there's in reference to this point about how we must have, personal experience over our own suffering in order to be able to generate the attitude which really cares for other sentient beings. So from the graduated path itself, it says that when we consider the wandering in a cyclic existence, tormented by suffering, being bereft of happiness, and that the hairs rise up on our because of fear. That if we don't have that sense of fear for ourselves, then how will we generate the compassion of not being able to bear the tormenting suffering which other sentient beings are, and they are being bereft of happiness. So we must feel it for ourselves, otherwise we won't feel it for others.
담보 개치슈데 아니 체들은 예바 중당아 삼로 체들은 예바 중할 때는 아니 치매 낭시 체들 낭시 도야 삼로 치매 체들 낭시 도할 때는 아니 치매 낭시 도야 치매 낭시 도할 때는 아니 다 지금 치매 낭시 도네 아니 저 가서 치매 낭시 도네 다가 이제 가서 타바 되니 로다 타바자 많이 받잖아 다가 제 타바자 안 주고서 아니 타요 막이 심제 탐제가 된 주에 아니 산제 고마마 줘 탐도 소다가 이제 가서 지금 가서는 지금 직된 디가 예배 토네 다 가죠 컨디션 디가 인제 방들이 예배 토네 아니 지질려 봐이나 아니 랑게 심제래 가서다 심제 탐제 산제 고마 되는 예 로디에 니가 숙샤지 뷰다가 용도에 지켜봐 용고 있어 봐 가서 와게 디가 되 매서는 거 라버를 버지면 용고 요 말어 와 라버를 버지면 So penetration 랑 코에 되기라 착시 축처보 유버지 아니 샘제시에 코에 코알에 타바 되는 예서도 또 가보려 봐. 랑 코에 되기를 현자 축처보 유견지게 아니 샘제 탐자 산제 고만 되는 요 산제 고만 semje tamje da koale tade sanje goba do는데 sam로 비다 보게서 하부시라고 다 랑기 베셈 딩네다 코에 디길라야 시자메트 고고 당디게 봐 딜레 타베 타바지 마도나다 때도 디게 용다 프라 요마네 삼사 삼로 슈점을 요바이나 아니 semje 셰 동에 코에 동에 나슬 미스베 닝지게 니가 슈자 중으로 와
And so really we usually begin by really reducing and even overcoming the attachment to the affairs and the stuff of this life. It's very, very important that we begin like that. And then we expand that attitude out when we reflect on what's available in future lives. We also see that, again, it's just a whole pile of suffering and torment. So we stop attachment to the aspirations for future lives. And so we can see that there's not enough there. And that really brings us to the motivation to attain liberation. Liberation, which is really based on having reached a point of profound disillusionment with what I can get out of this life and future lives in cyclic existence. So this is profound attitude to get out of cyclic existence completely because you have really focused very clearly on all of the suffering, the nature of suffering of that reality. And then you further that by saying, well, I can't do this for myself alone. I need to consider all other kind mother sentient beings who are going through exactly the same suffering, torment, disappointment, disillusionment. And so I want to attain liberation for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now, by being able to reach that point, you have developed a motivation based on a sound foundation of considering the reality of this life, the future lives, liberation itself, and you've reached this motivation that you want to attain actual enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now, because it has been fed and founded on profound kind of ascertainment, knowledge, that it is going to be a solid, stable, pure, powerful motivation that will attain that state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it's very important that we do this in those stages, that we have this strong foundation to build upon such a powerful, such a very important motivation. Otherwise, we'll have this kind of division of energies. We'll have this conflicting attitude, where on the one hand, we think we're striving for liberation or the initial state of enlightenment, but I'm still quite clinging to the happiness of cyclic existence. I want my cake and eat it too. So that's not really focusing all your energy in the one direction. Therefore, there won't be much of a benefit to that practice, to that attitude.
준주 레서 semje deda namlango rangi tendo tendese milandu ya mabene shingi tendo kalaje shesume che
And then the same meaning comes from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Master Shantideva, where he says, if those beings have never before even dreamt of such an attitude for their own sake, how could it ever arise for others?
Then the kibu sumje lamje rimba tibe tone kibu chungrenje lam tiba lam ngola tiba mayingi kibu chungre da tumo ya lam ngasa lam kashi es kibu chibu ngodru sajang ge yala do chene tiba yin gede kibu chungrenje chogona kibu chibu yosa yala ina kibu chibu lam do chebe chogyo chungre da tumo ya lamje rimba shebe tane chi go shena.
And so, therefore, this the meaning of being able to practice the stages of the path for the three capacities of beings is that one isn't directly, or not, it's not explicitly really referring to a path for the smaller or medium capacity beings, but they are paths in common with, and that here that's to be understood that in many ways they act as like preliminaries for the greater capacity being path. In other words, they are branch practices acting for means of accumulating merit on the one hand and of purifying negativities on the other. But then a question arises. It says, if the point is really the path of the greater capacity being, and not directly talking about the turning of the wheel for the smaller or medium capacity being, then why isn't it just referred to as the path of the greater capacity being? Why do you have to have the three capacities? After all, the main objective is to get to the path of the greater capacity being.
다 기부 소소 체대에서 티발로 그바치분이 요래서 대다 기부 충전 다서 투모 로 마제바야 라니 기부 첨부 캐치에 나게 쇼바다 로딩 로 랍딩 타마솔라 펜체와 오사.
And so the answer to that is that there is two main reasons for presenting the path relative to three different capacities of being. And the first of these is that the presenting that if one fails to generate the attitude of mind of the path in common with the beings of smaller and intermediate capacity first, one may begin the graduated path teachings with the attitude of, I'm actually a Mahayanist. I'm a Mahayana practitioner, and so you have this arrogance to begin with. And so by being following that graduated path from smaller to intermediate capacity being, one overcomes that tendency to be arrogant, considering oneself to be a great Mahayanist and so on. And the other important feature is that by presenting an elementary, intermediate and advanced stages, it brings about a great benefit for progressively, in other words, for each of these stages, that there's a kind of focus specifically on a kind of the attitude of the smaller, then the intermediate, and then the greater capacity being, that it actually has benefit for all three.
충전지에서 로마장바 기부 첨부 남라 주로 제장 사바고마 미게시 사바고마 티켓고 말했어. 오만이 도에 가야 미게위치로서 오만이 도에 가야 미게 다 가라도록 라마창에 강바적 저거도 오만이 지하면서 도인자는 고마 티켓고도 치로서 대나서 대과 첨부 남겨진 바치다 개발 내줘 라멜을 주버되나 기부 충전도 투모여 람라 내전치보다 개치못지는 내전치보다 내가 동부진에서 보다 개치못 차트로서.
And so therefore it's saying that when we talk about the greatness of these teachings and so on, and that the path of the greater and the intermediate sections of the capacities, greater and intermediate capacities of beings, is that all of that practice of that Dharma is based on being able to attain a human rebirth as of the temporary higher state, which is the objective of the smaller capacity being. So we have to understand that the fulfillment of the goals of the smaller capacity being allows us to be able to practice and develop the attitudes relative to the medium, intermediate, and greater capacity being. And as a beginner, any person who is a beginner, that they will be able to practice. That if they kind of like practice the smaller and intermediate stages, there's every possibility of being able to develop the attitude relative to the higher capacity being. But if the person does not train in the smaller and intermediate capacity being practices or paths, then they will not be able to cultivate the higher motivation that is relative to the path of this greater capacity being. And that if they do not practice the paths relative to the intermediate and smaller capacity being, then they're not going to get anywhere. Again, I said, yeah, that's more like us. we kind of like pretending, really. So, and again, so we have the stages of the path of the Mahayana vehicle in general, and then in particular the aspiration to attain the highest yoga tantric practices. If we have a desire for that, then we must take very seriously and take the essence of all the teachings relative to the paths in common with the smaller and intermediate capacity beings. And then as Manjushri, Lord Manjushri says, he says, never mind the kind of like the tantric teachings and the very profound instructions, etc., for the time being, but from the beginning, you must be able to generate renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, and really and gain some experience of real experience of renunciation and the mind of enlightenment as something indispensable, something really essential. And so that and that if one can generate those minds, then it is possible that we will be able to quite effortlessly generate the causes for the omniscient state of enlightenment, and indeed all the virtues relative to liberation itself. But if we consider that there's no need to proceed in stages like this, then we will never ever understand the essence of the path. It will be lost to us. And it's like a house. It says, Genla saying, if you want to build a house, you must start with a quality foundation. And that if you have, if you're not paying attention to that, if you do not put the necessary work into the foundation, then whatever you build on top will be completely compromised and very unstable, and not work it out at all. So even for that level, I think you must start off with putting the quality foundation in for what you're going to build on later on.
그래서 당고 그 차시대 차상지 거래. 배는 거죠. 심지 탐지도 산지에 고마주고 차상지 로로 차와지. 주당 그래서 로로 차와지. 이게 차상 차차에는 아니 곧 근데 주고 다시 되네 주고 봐. 니 줘는 야 주고 도.
And so like we can
차상 시고 도. 당고 저 뒤쪽보다 마스터 플랜 쓰려다. 어떤 직직제. 로안. 강바다 아키텍처가 지금 차장시 아니 신내저 딱 그냥 고수고와.
And so it's like, yes, an architect with the master plan of the whole building. That's our master plan is, of course, yes, that we will attain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. But we also must know where to start. And that means that we're developing, for example, renunciation. And so we are fully aware of the big plan, the master plan. But in doing so, we also know where we must begin and how we must proceed in stages.
아니 고조서 세대 당시 가원에 주거든. 세대 당시 마가나 먼저 출 당기면 도와. 그 세대 된다로 줘셔도 와. 최근에 저 최대가 세대 된다로 줘셔도 와.
And so that begins with really being able to put a stop to the clinging to the affairs of this life. That really is a starting point, because if we can't deal with that, then we're always going to be, our dharma is always going to be compromised and tainted and contaminated, because we're still clinging to the affairs of this life, and indeed it won't be a dharma practice at all.
because corruption 저번에도 왔던 거죠. 최시 지구지올 때 corruption 되게 매우서도 다 야, 뒤전에 제 딜을 되면은 치맥 되기를 잘해야 치맥 corruption 돼 계속도 와. 다들은 다 봤다. 다 탐색 개발 차지 탐색 개발 되게 그거 온도 만도 왔지 고도 와. 되게 그거 온도 만도 왔지. 제디 온도 만도 와. 치맥 온도 만도 와. 탑에 온도 만도 와. 탐색 개발 온도 더 쏘고도 와.
And so, like this sense of corruption, we must sense in the same way that if a building is built on the basis of corruption, it will not be quality. And so this life too, if we're attached to the affairs of this life, that is a corruption. If we're attached to the affairs of future lives, then that is a level of corruption. And we must see that we do not fall under the control of the corruption of being attached to the affairs of this life. We must not fall under the control of the corruption that's related to future lives. We must not fall under the corruption of related to just attaining liberation for oneself alone, but we must fall under the control of the objective of attaining liberation or attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So let's begin there, and I think then yes, this introduces us to the actual stages of the path to enlightenment, leading straight immediately afterwards.
Yeah, this is that ninja that 가사 that 모두 초조 MLA 아마 가서 때 시작주 제거를 근데 나서 저도 다 답변을 했더라고요. 매네스가 또 싸웠어.
So
나가는 시간에 하나로 뭐시 뭐지 내버려도 와 뒤에 나서 주도 다 뒤에 좀 다스 점을나 심지어 내가 수요가 있네 뉴도 내내 가 체주도 내 용해 아니 체대 다 가서 중화되다 되자 감도 좋아질 거다 저 동안 남의 자주 거 티셔 가서 매네스가 또 싸웠어.
So I thought we'd just to finish with recite some medicine Buddha mantras, and specifically for Emily's mother, who was undergoing an operation. Already done. She will maybe recover very quickly. And Hannelore, you have an acquaintance who's very close to death as well. And indeed for all those who are sick or ill or undergoing medical procedures, and indeed also for all those who have died, wherever they are reborn in any of the 6 realms of existence, may they be freed from the suffering there. Attain a precious human rebirth and meet with a qualified Mahayana teacher and proceed along the paths and grounds to enlightenment. So
在比较怎么比较这边，那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较这边，那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较这边，那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较这边，那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较这边，那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较那在什么个的说大家都比较在比较怎么比较在比较那在什么个大家都比较在比较怎么那在什么个的说大家都个的巴拉松个的说的说大家都个巴拉个的说巴拉松个的大家都个巴拉松个的我的大家都个巴拉个的我的说大家都个巴拉松个的我的说我们大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都我们大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的都送大的om dare do dare do som 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 dare do dare som dare do dare do som dare do dare do som dare do dare do som dare do dare som dare do om dare do dare do som 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 dare do dare som dare om dare do re so yo ade nyu do da je do ma tu jo ne to a ji de sa la go ma ra so e ja jo sen jo ren bo che ma je ba na je jo ji ke wa ne wa ne gong do bia wa ra说多年大话人波想马家饭来解决结完，过年广东陪我说，个人认为各位情况的判断的话嘛就出来了，这类是我电子下边时间嘛都就接着那边那么他把了，给这这样老的，就在那把头也没个那边去了，生了就把它说。罗山在别下那所谓的王国将改天天给中间双卡帕罗山在别下那所谓的面前面天天见了先见面也王国将改天天给中间双卡帕罗山在别下那所